My father is an abuser and I barely escaped. Amma. Here's to hoping this doesn't get buried. My father abused my mother, my sister, and the rest of the family. I face the worst of it with him abusing me physically, mentally, and verbally. Ask me anything. Do you feel that being abused has defined who you are now? Definitely. I was badly brainwashed by my father to be very distrusting of everyone but him. I was finally able to escape that house after being locked in it my entire life and barely having contact with the outside world. I left on February 28th of this year. Waking up to everything around me is very frightening, and I'm struggling mentally and emotionally to grasp everything and understand how healthy relationships function as well as social interaction. Although my physical wounds have healed, I still face a lot of emotional trauma, and I'm still being harassed and guilt-tripped by him and my mother. Thank you for asking 3. That's really upsetting. I'm sorry that you have experienced such difficulties. I have experienced abusive fathers, so I relate to your struggles. You're clearly extremely capable, so I wish you continued strength through your travels. How did you escape? I made many attempts. My first one at 12. My second at 15. My third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and final attempts at 17. Now, all except the last were unsuccessful. My mother had started an argument with me, and it got to the point where my dad was getting very badly physical and verbal with me. It was one of the worst beatings I got from him. Many times I tried to jump out my window or run through the house to a door, but each time I was barred from exiting and hurt more. The next day we visited our family therapist, and I made sure to wear a t-shirt. Seeing the marks, the therapist finally had to call CPS, and he closed his office and left early to go home and file a report with CPS and LAPD. That was finally when I decided I just couldn't do it anymore, and I couldn't return home with them. I had nothing but my phone, $2, and the clothing on my back. As my therapist watched and my mother hysterically cried and begged me not to go, I just started walking and walking. I finally left and I felt free. I have not since returned home. Thank you for asking 3. Edit. Spelling errors. How is your life now? I would say it is a mix of good and bad. Some days are better than others. My father used to force medicate me and shove antidepressants and other meds down my throat. I'm since self-medicated with small amounts of medical marijuana and I'm doing very well this way. I have since gotten a job, a boyfriend, and I have regained the part of my family that my father had taken from me. I now live with my aunt, his sister, who fully supports me and is also trying to help me get my mom and sister out of there. I have built up such a strong relationship with her to the point I now refer to her as mom and my biological parents by their first names. I struggle a lot with opening up and controlling my emotions and anger. I also struggle socially and have awful anxiety. I don't sleep well at night and am told that I physically fight things off when I'm asleep. I have nightmares and have woken up screaming some mornings. Not having a relationship with my father, mother, and sister is very painful for me as I will always have love for them despite the trauma I have accumulated because of them. However, more than anything I want my father to get better. He is mentally ill, and I know he doesn't do this through his own actions. However, if he remains in denial and refuses help, it is his fault. I'm going to therapy and trying to open up and get past my trauma and help my mother and sister escape their abuser. However, it is a lot harder said than done. Thank you for asking 3. Not a question, but I really hope you the best, and I will be sending positive vibes your way. Be strong and trust me, I know how strong people get, and you definitely are strong, and will get stronger. Be safe, be positive, and be strong. Thank you so very much for your kind words. 3. Every bit of positivity I receive from others means so much to me, and I really needed to hear this. I'm trying my best to be a strong and independent person, and I'm working on myself every day. Thank you for your encouragement and support. 3. Do you feel like you now have a ton of freedom? And is it much nicer not living at the house? Yes, I do have a lot more freedom. When I lived with my father, he kept me locked in the house as much as he could, and I had absolutely no life and no choice in my life. Absolutely no freedom at all. After arriving to live with my new family, my father's side of the family which he actually hates and despises, I do not have my phone taken away at night and it's not checked ever, opposed to my parents going through it every night. I was allowed to get a job. I'm allowed to leave the house when I want, at reasonable hours of course, and I'm not constantly monitored or demanded to tell them my activities. It is much nicer to live with people who are not controlling and constantly watching my every move. Oh yeah, also the sun hurts on my skin and I have an awful vitamin D deficiency because I was never allowed out of the house. It's really nice to go for a walk when I want, or to go out with my friends or boyfriend without feeling like I'm distrusted. I used to be very afraid and anxious to go out. Thank you for asking. 3. Do you have anyone you can trust, like friends or a therapist? Yes. Our family and boyfriend are very welcoming and are encouraging for me to open up and talk about myself, emotions, feelings, etc. I no longer am suppressed to only speak when spoken to, another great controlling and abusive feature of my father. I also have just started seeing my own therapist for my problems. When I lived with my father, I only went to therapy for his and my mother's relationship and to fix their marital problems, as well as my mother's therapist, which he forced her to see regarding mental problems she did not have, which was another control mechanism. I just had my first session last week and I'm looking forward to my next one tomorrow. It feels better to be able to talk about my trauma and abuse, although I do struggle with opening up. Thank you for asking. 3. Glad you are safe and slowly building your new life. Why do you think your father behaves the way he does? How is your aunt so different from him? I find it interesting that he abuses you, your mom, and isolates his sister, the women in his life. Thank you so much. Your positive words mean a lot to me. My father is mentally ill and suffers from severe trauma from both as a child and from recent events of me and him being the victims of police brutality, him facing the worst of it, which also left him physically handicapped, as well as being assaulted by EMTs that worsened his handicap after he tried to assault my aunt's son, my cousin. My aunt was similar in a sense to him when she was around her 20s. However, not nearly as severe. She took the initiative to get better and receive mental treatment for her bipolar disorder and alcoholism. She is a much better person and has completely changed her life, and I deeply admire her for it and hope I grow up to be her. Comparing her with her brother, my father, it's like looking at night and day. I have developed a deep relationship with her in the few months I have lived with her, and I call her mom. As for your other question, he is very obsessed with keeping his family isolated from the outside world, including his own family and my mother's. He has restricted her phone usage and I'm barely able to have any contact with her, which saddens me as she is an enabler, but only because she is so trapped being there with him and being under his control. He has a deep fear of not being able to protect his family, thus he kept us isolated. His concern for us is also depended by the fact we are female. Every time I was able to leave the house, he planted stories in my mind of violence against women and the thought that every time I was out in public without him being there, I was open to being kidnapped, raped, assaulted, murdered, etc. Thank you for asking. 3. Also, he has trackers placed on me and my mother's phone. I turned mine off and wiped my phone, and on the car he has my mom use. Not a question, but I just wanted to tell you that I'm so proud of your strength and bravery. You clearly have a very good head on your shoulders and I can see you doing so well in life with the way you speak and think. You're amazing and you deserve the best there is. Sending you love, positivity and all the best wishes for the future. Thank you so much for your kind beautiful words. 3. It gives me strength to hear this and the drive to keep going towards a healthy direction. Much love to you. 3. How's your sister and or the rest of your family doing? As of now, I'm given very limited information regarding their situation. From time to time my mother will secretly FaceTime me to allow me to see her and my sister, 7, and I get anywhere between 5 minutes to a half hour to talk to them. He has doubled down on restricting them, and his virus is helping him in that. He is restricting my mother's phone use, and he is starting to program my sister to turn her into me. When I was there, I was doing most of the housework and aiding in their legal problems and having to be a ref in my mother and father's arguments almost daily and help in their financial and marriage problems. I hope to take custody of my sister when I turn 18 as I basically raised her. As for my mother, I want to help her escape the abuse and control. However, if she doesn't try or even want to get out of there, she has expressed she does not, then I'll have no choice but to take custody of my sister and move to the south with the rest of my family. Thank you for asking. 3. My mom was abusive too. Not quite to the extent of your pain, but I know how betraying it is to be hurt by those who are supposed to protect you. Use this experience as a triumph. Learn everything you can and become a stronger person. Get therapy so you have outside neutral perspective. This is a tough season, but this abuse doesn't define you. You are so strong, so amazing, and such a survivor. That'll come in handy in your life. You know you can survive anything because of this. Best wishes. Beautiful. You deserve all the best this world has to offer. Your words have brought me to tears. Thank you so much for saying this. I've never received such compliments in my life, as I was so used to being belittled and torn down daily. It felt like nothing I did was ever enough or appreciated. Even when I was the best and at the top, I somehow still could have done better to him. I'm so sorry you had to suffer through that. My PMs are always open to you and anyone who needs to talk/advice/vent. Every day I use my experiences to better myself as a person, and it shows me how and how not to act, treat people, react, etc. Once again, thank you so much for your wonderful compliments, kind words, and advice. I take every bit of positivity straight to the heart, and I use it as well as my past as a drive to be the best me I can be. Thank you so much for your kind words. 3. It's very surprising to hear a family with that level of abuse had a family therapist, as I've always imagined that's probably one of the last things an abuser would allow access to. How and why did your abuser allow that? And I'm glad you got to wear a shirt that could expose enough abuse for help, as I know abusers don't typically allow that. Good luck for you in the future. Yes, the family therapist was strange knowing he is an abuser. However, he was primarily for their marital problems and to aid in my mother's supposed mental illnesses. Work of my father, of course. I have in the past told him certain parts of the verbal, emotional, and physical abuse. However, my manipulative father downplayed it completely and was able to prevent him from calling CPS by offering to talk and work it out with him and find better ways to deal with my supposed bad attitude and apparent violent tendencies. The day that he finally decided to report what was going on, I had decided to wear a t-shirt to show off my bruises and signs of physical abuse. At that point he couldn't deny it or hold back on it anymore, and he had to do something, and I'm forever grateful that he did, as it gave me the chance to escape. He never knew the extent of what was really going on, as my father had forbidden anyone from telling him or expressing the real problem, which is why the therapy never helped or worked. Thank you for your support and kind words. It means everything to me. Thank you for asking. 3. Any advice for people going through the same thing? It was easier to just up and move away when I was a kid and was abused. Can't imagine going through it nowadays. But GJ and Ty for sharing. My advice is to do your research and look for the signs of mental illness and abuse. Recognizing those were my biggest drive in wanting to escape and run regardless of where I might have been going. At first I had no plan and was asking for hours at night. I was able to spend the night with a friend, but after that I was back to no plan. In some situations it is easier to escape. However, in mine I made several attempts to leave, all of which failed aside from my final attempt. I tried literally running away. I tried telling my therapist. I tried reaching out, all of which my father was able to dodge and keep me locked up there with them. I'm so sorry to hear you experienced abuse as a child, and I'm here if you need anyone. I'm very glad you were able to escape that situation. You are very noble and brave to do so. Thank you for asking. 3. Do you hate your father? No, I do not hate my father. I'm very against hate and using it to describe people or your emotions. I dislike the person my father has become. Dad is a loving, caring, protecting and supportive man who gives me lots of reassurance and affection. Dad is trapped, being the layers of trauma and mental illness that is preventing him from coming out and being himself. He needs to able to break those layers and bring out the dad I remember. And he has our full support, love and help. But he needs to see that he is ill and not himself and want to change, and when he does his family is here and ready to help and support him. I love my father. Regardless of everything that has happened, he is still dad deep down inside, and I'm always going to have love for him, and there's always a place in my heart that belongs to him. I hope he can come back to me. Thank you for asking 3. Thank you so much for answering. So sorry this happened to you. Hope you're doing good and taking care of you mentally and physically. Just wanted to say, if you need any encouragement and support at this point, feel free to PM me. Stay strong and positive. This too shall pass. Thank you so very much for your positivity and support. It means a great big deal to me, and I have been constantly working on my mental health as well as my physical. I suffered many long-term injuries from him as well as a permanent tear in my right shoulder. I have bad chronic pain, however I take advantage of every day I have to better myself and learn how to live the right way. Thank you so much for your positive words and encouragement. 3. I'm sorry if this sounds cold, but do you intend to take legal actions against him? And if he doesn't let your mom go, would you recur to the police/justice? Besides that, I would like you to know that you're a very strong and brave person to escape his dominance. Stay lit, and I hope you can get over all this and have your family back. I do intend to take legal action if he does not change his ways and show the initiative to change and become a better person. There is an active investigation with CPS, and I plan to tell them if he doesn't show change or the desire to. If he doesn't do that, and if my mother continues to stay with him, when I turn 18 I will be fighting for legal custody of my 7-year-old sister, and I will remove her from that awful environment as soon as I possibly can. Also yes, I'm literally staying lit lol. Under advice of my doctor I'm medicated with medical marijuana. Thank for your kind words, they mean a lot to me, especially during this time. In the end, and in a perfect world, I do want my family back. I want dad. I want mom. I want my sister. My hamster. My dog. Thank you for asking. 3. Thank you for sharing your story. Did you go to a traditional school or were you homeschooled? What was your favorite subject? Thank you for reading it. Technically both. My school was online based and attendance was not mandatory, however there was a campus and I could attend classes whenever I wanted. But all work was done online on their website. So my father used it to his advantage to keep me locked in the house at pretty much all times, and I only went if absolutely necessary. He had over 40 security cameras around the house and some even inside, so it was hard to do anything, let alone leave or sneak out. My window is also nailed shut and he took away my door on many occasions. To answer your other question, I really loved American history, economics and intro to business. I had the coolest history teacher who taught all 3, and he made them so dark and enjoyable. Thank you for asking. 3. If he died, how would you feel? Losing him is one of my greatest fears, wise from ending up back in that prison of a house being treated however he wanted to treat me. My father may be a sick person, but deep down he is dad, and he is trapped under all those layers, and he needs help to break back out and be the dad I love and remember as a young child. Recently, my mother manipulated me into staying by telling me had cancer, which completely tore me up. I later found out she was lying. About a week ago, he showed high signs of suicidal thoughts and actions, and my mother expressed this to me and detailed what he was doing and saying. After hearing this, I broke down inconsolably and sobbed hard. He has been vaping, smoking weed, smoking cigarettes and drinking heavily since I left, and I'm terrified that he will commit suicide, and it tears me up. The last thing I want is for him to die. He is still dad deep down inside. Thank you for asking. 3. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't even have anything to ask. That just sounds awful. That's alright. Thank you so much for reading and listening to my story. It's nice to find that people take interest in me and give their support. It's nice to know that I'm not alone. It is rather unfortunate, but I was lucky enough to be able to escape, and if doing this is able to help others by giving them a place to come to or giving them the motivation to leave and the strength to get out is all I want. Thank you for commenting 3. Thank you for sharing. I'm just wondering why your mother does not get a divorce and move out with your sister. Considering his abusive history, it should be fairly easy if it goes to court. Thank you for reading. My mother has refused for years to divorce him, even when I was at the point of crying on my knees holding her hand begging her to leave him, because I just couldn't take it anymore. Once I have her the ultimatum of it's either him or us, and she still chose us. Deep down I believe it isn't, because she is scared of him, which everyone thinks, but because she loves him too much. She too remembers the times he was a good husband, a caring father, and loving protecting figure in our lives. She has told me that once she asked him if he even loves her anymore, and he replied with has just run out of love. I asked her then why she didn't leave him if he admitted he didn't love her, and she told me it was because she loved him too much. Another time, she has told me she's afraid if she leaves him he'll kill himself, or even worse, he might kill her then himself, and she is afraid of leaving me and my sister alone in this world. She believes he is an unfit parent, as she has told me if anything happens to her, I need to take my sister and go to our godmother's house. She doesn't want to take him to court as he already has a record, not criminal somehow. He has a 5150 and is a troublemaker to LAPD and LAFD, is in lawsuits with both parties as well as a hospital in the city of LA, and has been placed in a psychiatric facility at one point. She also doesn't want child support or any material things from him, and doesn't want to ruin him with a divorce both financially and emotionally. Thank you for asking 3. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.